welcome back, viewers and esteemed members of our board of directors, to episode 7 of Carota Motors. I kept you waiting, didn't I? A lot has happened since our last episode. First, I'd like to thank you all for helping me reach 500 subscribers. I guess you guys really want to see where this ends up. And next, a lot has changed in automation since we last left off. The open beta has gone public with a big patch as well. Emissions have been completely reworked again, and some much more difficult competitor cars have been generated. They use tech pool and quality very aggressively now, and they're much smarter about stuff like setting up their brakes and tires. Now, our company here, we're sitting on only around +3 tech pool on average, and some of the biggest companies, after the company bonus and everything, they'll be on 6 or more tech pool, and then they'll use that much quality or more on their cars. So our cars are going to be looking relatively worse in performance and more expensive. And of course, we spent the last episode getting everything set for emissions, and now there's new emission systems. We need to retune everything, so that's something we have to look forward to. And then, I put off making this episode for so long that patch 2 came out on a public branch as well. And that has some very nice features. Rear engine layouts can now be made on a ladder frame chassis. That's something I was sorely missing when I started this campaign. They fixed a bug that was existing for a little while, where reliability was about twice as valuable to market demographics as it should have been. A lot more changes have happened to that gearbox reliability stuff and the weight of gearboxes and the quality they need that we saw in the last episode. And we've also got a handy button up top here that tells us when emission standards are coming in from the main screen. So you can see this stuff from outside the car designer. Now, what have we got planned for this episode? Well, I think we already decided that we really need to replace the aging Caprese, our rear-engine sports car. It's getting to be quite old. We designed the first version in 1963, and now it's 1980. So we need a new Caprese altogether. And we have a lot of interest in adding a medium-size car to our lineup. The Coniglio will continue to be our small car, but we'll have a mid-size car that can sell to family and premium demographics as well. And then not only that, we'll need to update the Cetriolo and Coniglio. The Coniglio will need some more trims. We definitely have more demand for like a standard 4-door trim. I think that's something we came to conclude in the last episode. And the Cetriolo will have to get a little update. The Cetriolo has actually become our best-selling car. That's why it's highlighted in the top right up here. And then maybe after those are in the works, we will want to make ourselves a supercar, because we've got a lot of money to spare, and I think we can do it. Now, the supercar, I know that the Caprese Elite Turbo could arguably be getting into supercar territory with enough tuning, but I want a supercar that doesn't share an engine family with our other cars, so it can be on its own engineering schedule, and we can just use it to test out new technologies and gain some familiarity ahead of time. We're going to be coming up on stuff like anti-lock brakes and traction control and advanced power steering that can be very expensive in terms of engineering time to add to our normal cars. So a supercar will let us experiment with that tech ahead of time. And then in general, we are going to need to update our factories. We need a lot more production space. You can see that pre-orders for every model we have are 10 to 12 months out. In the short term, we have to raise our prices, but we're also sitting on a lot of cash, so we need bigger factories. Now, I'm a little nervous about that because we know that the competitors have gotten a lot tougher. So I'm worried that when I update this, maybe I'll have to cancel some pre-orders, but then the new pre-orders won't come in nearly as fast. We'll be backsliding. I'm hoping that doesn't happen, but we'll see what happens. Either way, we've got a lot of cash, and we definitely need to expand. Have we created a Subaru? Well, We're getting close. We've got the boxer engine in the front, but we're not all-wheel drive yet. And that could be an option going forward, so it's something to think about. We've got some suggestions for sporty cars. The Arrabbiata, maybe as a name for a sport trim with a Coniglio, targeted at the fun market, probably. I'm seeing a suggestion for the Caesar as a replacement to the Caprice, another salad name for mainline sports cars.
Awe, true to Kaiser.
We've even got some people suggesting a full-size luxury sedan, like an S-Class kind of thing. I definitely want to work up with a medium size first. We'll see if we get to the point of having a small, medium, and large sedan. That could happen by endgame, but I'm not sure. And we've got a lot of suggestions for Coniglio trims. Maybe an off-roady version. This user compares it to a Volvo XC, but I think we'll put us squarely into Subaru territory if we made a all-wheel drive Coniglio variant. I don't know if that's going to be efficient engineering time. And we also have the suggestion here for a Merde, Primo, and Elite version of every body type. And unfortunately, I think that would be really inefficient. I'd have to definitely spread it across like 2 or 3 factories just to have that efficiency penalty in construction go away. And of course, we've got a lot of people asking for a supercar, which is why it's on the menu for this episode. Shelby Cobra here says we should put it in a wedge body, and he'd like a flat 8. And man, I'd like a flat 8 too, but unfortunately, the game won't let us do it. It's just not an option. We even have a suggestion for a small V10, which could be a goofy supercar-only engine. And I'd also like to say, I'm glad a lot of you guys seem to be appreciating the music. I spend a lot of wasted time just browsing obscure game music to put in these videos. I'm glad it wasn't for nothing. Now, we're going to spend a lot of time sorting out all of the factories between our different models and deciding where we need to expand or build new factories. I think the very first thing I want to do is spend the time designing what's probably going to be the best-selling new model and figure out what our mid-size car is going to look like. I'm going to have to go back and browse previous episode comments to decide on a name as well. Let's say we're targeted squarely at the family or family premium demographic in every country that's not Arcana and Deluha. The core version will definitely be a sedan, which is the most desired kind of car in here, but we're looking for a body that has other options as well. And, actually, I need to remind myself, what is the wheelbase of our current compact car, Coniglio? Looks like that would be 2.3 meters. So for a significant size up, we're probably looking at 2.6, 2.7 meters. That's a decently large car, especially for our standards. So body type needs to include a sedan, probably sedan and a wagon. Hatchback's optional. And gotta have a front engine. Wheelbase of at least 2.5. And we want to start with the newest options we have available up at the top here. And immediately, I'm liking this Juliet body. I think that's like a Volkswagen Jetta kind of thing. It's got basically every body type we want. Sedan, convertible, hatchback, wagon. It does have a wagon, right? No wagon? Yes, wagon. Yeah, there's a wagon. And it's new. Automation markets do care about the year it's in. It helps with prestige, especially. And the more premium you go to, the more advanced body designs they want. In 1984, we have this rounded thing with a lot of overhang. That seems a lot more American to me. Probably not our style. And 2.8 meters, that's getting a little big. 2.6 here with the nice square hood. This could also be an option. Luxury MWB wagon, they call it. So it's like a BMW kind of thing. Kind tough choice. And that's track width 1.3. 1.3. They're actually pretty similar in size. Like, Juliet kind of looks smaller, but that's just because it has less space in front and behind the cabin. This actually might be it, though. So yeah, let's say we'll start with this 4-door sedan. Steel, unibody, front engine, and double wishbones all around. At this point, this is basically the only way we know how to make a car, and we're sticking to it. And we have now, wow, 5 tech pool into chassis design. Now, it's tempting to leave this down low because it makes the car a lot cheaper, especially in terms of engineering time, which we pay up front. I'm going to add at least a +3. We go to 4 and see how it hangs on. We'll revisit this later, but it's going to make a big difference to our reliability and kind of just overall stats. And of course, it's going to need a new version of the Disco engine, our 1.6, which we adopted only recently. That makes not a lot of power for a steel mid-size car, but it's kind of the option that we have. I don't think the Gladiatore is going to be a good option for families. And I want to come back to this and make sure it passes emissions. But for now, quick check. We did go to single-point electronic fuel injection. If it's going to be a long update cycle, multi-point could be an option for us. That will take us a long time, but it would be a big deal. Either that, or we could add a lot of quality to the single point. And multi-point is using some tech pool as well. I would say single point for now. We're going to go from -3 to like +4. That's just going to make a massive difference in the reliability, you can see up here. And somehow it got set to low quality fuel. We definitely want to be running on regular octane, I think, in that's what's available in, actually, especially Farinia doesn't have premium yet, so regular unleaded it is. And we have access to 3-way catalytic converters, which are basically better in every way. They're an emissions device, but compared to the 2-ways, which is the earlier version, they're going to be both more efficient at removing emissions, and they're going to make the engine flow better. Oh, well, that's troublesome. So we don't have, or do we have the space for front-wheel drive? Somehow I read that as rear-wheel drive. So that's funny. I'm not sure what led to this being the case, but front-wheel drive is our only option on this vehicle, and rear-wheel drive is not an option, even though the engine's... Would I choose transverse at some point? I didn't mean to do that. I meant to choose longitudinal. You can see the difference here. Transverse, where the engine is... Let's hide the hood, hide the body. Mounted sideways, that's the more standard for modern cars, but you can see that our Boxer, which is not the more standard shape of an engine for modern cars, doesn't fit that well. And if we do it that way, it's a much better fit. And because we've built cars like this before, we have a familiarity of 43%, which manifests as a discount on engineering time for the chassis, which is a big deal for us. And doing it transverse would not have as much familiarity. And that gives us the front and rear options I expect. We'll going front-wheel drive for this car. And all-wheel drive, if we want to get crazy, that would be a big seller for premium markets, an all-wheel drive mid-size car. I might come back and just see what it would cost us. But front-wheel drive, manual, 5 speeds I think we can handle just fine. Open diff. medium compound tires, alloy wheels. Will help with the prestige and fuel economy. Default tire size is probably okay. I'll come back to it. Disc brakes all around. Vented discs are very nice to have. Semi-clad under tray. That's that plastic bits on the bottom, which you don't see represented in game, but they cover this up with plastic and let the air flow more smoothly. Helps with fuel economy. And noise felt in the cabin. We will default to a premium interior and a... Ooh. Cassette player at premium is an option, but it uses up tech pool. Or I could go with an 8-track, and it'd be cheap for us to add quality. Not sure what route I want to go here. And it's always annoyed me that if you use an early unlock, you see this penalty here. It's also a new feature, by the way. You used to have to mouse over the slider to see that tech pool used for unlocks, but now it's shown here all the time, which is very convenient. If you see this penalty, you want to not use the quality as much, right? But it's tied together, the entertainment and interior quality, which is always kind of annoying. It's like, well, if I want to rush job the radio, I have to make the seats cheap too. And we have traditionally used a manual rack and pinion steering. We have hydraulic as an option. I might put it on as an option. It's less sporty, but it's more comfortable. And no crazy technology for the springs. We could go for hydro-pneumatic or air springs. Those are kind of luxury car options, I think, the both of them. Very European, but they make the car less reliable, which is not something that we want. And now, how are we looking? Let's hit normal presets on the suspension, which is not that normal. We have an 8.1 degree roll angle. Definitely going to take care of that. Brakes, they're no good. So before I can get a good idea of what we're looking at in terms of performance, I need to tune that stuff. And just bear with me while I do that. The first thing I'm going to do is drag the ride height around while watching the practicality step to find where the best practicality bonus is from ride height. And that means that it's easy to step in and out of the car and load cargo into it. And then we'll tune the suspension around that ride height. Another change has happened recently. So it used to be that the sportiness was this later circle, and the drivability was this earlier circle on the graph of steering angle relative to steering that actually happens in the car. So high means you're oversteering, and low in the blue means you're understeering. And it's now more possible to get a car that has a good bonus to both sportiness and drivability than it was before, where they were pretty opposed to each other. We can see this car's right in the middle. That's more sporty than what we want. So I'm going to take away some camber. Take away some rear sway bar. Add some front sway bar. I want this drivability right on the blue line, the best bonus. And I'm not too fussed about the sportiness on this car. Give it a little toe in. And there we are. So we end up with a car that is more understeery than they'd want for a sports car, but pretty much perfect for a normal family car. And with a little tweaking, I can also get it to a low tire I can also get it to a low tire service cost multiplier, which is also a big thing for family cars. If the car wheels are cambered a lot, you'll see them physically tilting on the car, and obviously that means that they tend to wear out on one side first, and then the tires don't last as long. If they're straight up, that's best for tire life. I was going to space out the wheels a little bit, because they don't look great in that body. They're still kind of tucked in, but whatever. Then brakes. Right away we can see that we don't really have any brake fade penalties, so the brakes do not need to get bigger. In fact, they can get smaller. But the brake force needs to be dragged up. And we end up with a tune with soft brake pads, which are more comfortable. I can even afford to go to drum brakes in the rear, which are cheaper, and I think a hair more reliable. Now, gearing actually started out pretty reasonable. We're getting a bonus reliability from the current settings. I can just line it up so that the top speed is in 4th gear. And they like a rather tall first gear, but not a stupid tall first gear. Gives us a 0-60 time of 16 seconds, so it's certainly a slow car. Starting to feel even slow for 1980 standards. But we're pretty good there. I don't really need to slam too much quality into it. But of course we will, because that's what they like. Do I want wider tires? Maybe not. Aerodynamics like to get up. Helps with our fuel economy. We're at 32 miles to the gallon, by the way, which is pretty nice. If I look at our detailed stats, I do want to know for our fuel economy. Yes, we also have enough engine power that we are on the Class 3 test. This is the world something testing standard for fuel economy. If your car is very slow, you'll use the Class 1 or Class 2 test cycle. It's just a set of speeds the car has to meet at a certain time. And if we're on Class 3, nothing weird's happening, basically. We're driving like a normal car. Now, emissions. We're at WES 5, and we may want to be at 6, but I'm not sure about that. Yes, we want to be at 6. Really, it'd be good to hit 7. So we do need to do some emissions tuning on this engine. And now, just for reference, we already have the good bottom end pistons. Lower compression now actually helps with emissions. I switch to... Looks like we are passing on NOx and hydrocarbons. We're failing on carbon monoxide. And I want to say that means we want to get the car running leaner. Also hit that emissions optimization button. Or don't. Because it actually adds carbon monoxide while reducing the other ones. There, if I just lean out the fuel map, then we're looking great. We're hitting World Emissions Standard 7. That means that we're good until a long time in the future. On this car. We'll see what happens when we get to the Cetriolo vans. That wasn't a difficult tune now, but, it helps have a small car, small engine. Oh, this is kind of neat. So I can see on these emissions fuel maps, the red areas are what you drive in the currently selected gear. So in first gear, we're on this low RPM up to high throttle. And then later on, we use the rest of the graph. So as it is, with family premium as our primary target market, we're looking maybe not premium enough. if I had to guess. It says it's reliable enough. We have good drivability, poor sportiness. Technically we're ahead on comfort, but remember that in this campaign, because of my difficulty settings, the AI has a 30% bonus to their final score, basically. So we might need to get ahead of them a little bit to really be seen as premium. And it's not that prestigious either. Because it's a smaller car, it just kind of looks cheaper. And some of our choices are that way. That small engine is a big factor in that too. So what can we do to make it more premium? We could, of course, slap some quality on there if we can afford it. I'll have to look at my engineering times. And another crazy thing we could do could be going to all-wheel drive. And that would be a big piece of tech for this car. And in fact, right off the bat, without any further tuning, it doesn't help us that much. It actually makes the car harder to drive. And of course, we're failing emissions because it doesn't help the fuel economy. Now, at first glance, this engineering time is something I like to see. 42 months. Chassis engineering is the biggest factor by far. So we can afford to put some more advanced features in and increase our quality sliders. It looks like that $18 million per month that we pour into tech pool is really paying off for us. That said, I'm still not quite seeing the high desirability levels I quite want to see. 82% might be actually pretty decent for how much more difficult the competition has gotten. But I'm going to play around with it and see if I can't improve it some. Actually, I said 80%. That's demographic match, which tells us how closely our car matches that demographic's desires. Normalized desirability, which is what's going to affect our actual sales, it does get affected by price a lot. That's at like 60%. That's to say, the car's just not that great. And stat-wise, it's fine. It's just that we're not better enough to overcome that 30% bonus that the competition gets. And of course, that's against 1980 cars. This is going to come out in 3-4 years, and it's going to be, there'll be newer cars out for the competition as well. I have noticed that the price changed a lot going from 50 to 55 profile. So I guess that the wheels were a little too skinny for 1980, and that made them expensive. Or the tires, too skinny. So a higher sidewall makes a much cheaper tire. And it's a little more comfortable too. In fact, if I go even a little taller sidewalls, I think I can go back to suspension and remove some of that toe in. That's got us a few points of comfort with the chubbier tires. We've also gone up in quality for wheels and tires. It's not very expensive for us to do. Definitely up in quality for body. That does cost us production units. It's significant. But, we do what we gotta do. Actually, going from 94 to 97 by adding a few points of quality and gaining a point of prestige, 2 comforts, reliability, it's not that bad of a deal. If I take 1 point of chassis quality off, leaving it at +3, we can put points almost everywhere and come out ahead in total engineering time and cost. Making it an all-wheel drive car after I retune the steering does give us a little drivability, a lot of prestige, and I know this will drop in fuel economy and increase in price, which isn't really our motif, but certainly seems to be a better desirability match for both family and family premium in the countries we have selected. So, all-wheel drive? Maybe. If I just go to the engineering screen, we will see that that all-wheel drive has added only a couple months. We can afford to keep it at the high quality. In fact, I could probably even afford to do an all-wheel drive and a non-all-wheel drive version. Decisions. I might make, I don't know, I could make like all of them all-wheel drive and then just the bottom end not all-wheel drive. And then we'll really be living the Subaru fantasy. One thing I might consider is, can I get some power out of this engine? If I just crank up to 75 horsepower, do they like that more? Looks like it barely makes a difference. They do prefer the low-end tune that we have right now. On the other hand, dumping in quality points in a few categories does make a noticeable improvement. It gives us both top and bottom end power, and they seem to like that. Since we went to all-wheel drive, we haven't been passing emissions with this car. Not to level 7 like we want. So the only thing that will get us that level of emissions is a very lean fuel map. And otherwise, we can afford to get a little more cams and springs on here for some more performance. So we're now up to 72 horsepower. Manual, 5-speed, all-wheel drive as the default trim here. You can even bias it a little bit. Going 60% to the front makes it a good bit more drivable. So maybe that's our car. And before I go making any more trims, I'll have to do all my visual design on this base version, and then we can make a wagon and a hatchback and stuff like that, so I can copy it over. I'll need a name too. I'm thinking, since the Coniglio, the little rabbit, is our small car, the bigger car can be named after a bigger animal that hops on 2 legs, such as the kangaroo, or in Italian, the canguro. And we'll call this trim the Premium All-Wheel Drive as a temporary name. Alright, visual design for the Canguro. The first thing I did was pick out some sensible-looking alloy rims, nothing too posh. And then I had to go re-export the paint color from the last car. I think that's all era appropriate. Now, some of the cars that I looked at for examples were a 1985 Subaru RX and Volkswagen Golf, and they've all got kind of a similar vibe, and so do a lot of other economy cars from this time. They all have those plastic bumpers. I'm looking at US mandated plastic bumpers in this case, and we're not sticking closely to that, but I decided to put some of that in there. I went with changing the colors so they're just blinkers down there. Although I think actually a lot of them had like a blinker and fog light combination originally. My thinking was that the whites were just reverse lights for the back. And we're using the exact same headlights, 3D fixture placement, and the grille kind of continues above and below the bumper. So if you look closely, there is a good amount of airflow space, but at a glance, it seems like a very narrow grille above the bumper is all that's feeding the car. It gives it kind of a clean look. And it's lined up with the headlights. It's rectangular. I wanted to add some kind of definition to the hood here, and I just could not find what I was thinking of in terms of something that wouldn't pop out too much, would keep the hood from being completely smooth. In the end, I kind of gave up on that. Plastic mirrors, plastic everything. It's the era of plastic. Plastic. You're going to see a lot more of it. Plastic door handles. And definitely have to have the roof rack. That's been a Carota tradition. I think it's kind of distinctive for our mainline family cars. Getting the bumper to wrap around nicely was hard. I had to extend it with some both 2D and 3D pieces on the side of the car. And of course, these plastic bars that run the length of the car, they're pretty inescapable. If you don't like them on a car from this era, well, you don't have a choice. I guess the thinking is to minimize door dings. Like if you open your door into somebody, that plastic belt is going to be what hits first. But it breaks up the smooth, just painted look of the car. And in the back, same as the front, exact same bumper fixture. I spent a while trying to pick some lights I was happy with for the rear. I had to remember to be creative and repurpose some of the ones into a little different design than what they were at first. I don't think I needed rear-facing blinkers because the bumper has the blinkers. And what I'm assuming I'm going to treat as reverse lights, although they might be fog lights, I don't know. And I just wanted another plastic area in which to place the license plate, which I went and downloaded more mods, and I got these classic license plates, which I'm a big fan of. They were the default license plates in the game for a long time. They got removed. I guess decided that having a license plate that said FAP 365 was not professional or something. And I didn't agree with that. I think it's very professional. Oh yeah, I wanted to make it look like the trunk went further down, but I gave up on that because the UV mesh was kind of low resolution in that area, so the seam cutout didn't look good. And then pick out a dashboard. I'm afraid I haven't been very consistent with interior design language for this brand. And looking at seats, it seems like this kind of seat is actually what you'll see in a lot of these cars. Even though I've used, I think, this seat earlier, this is probably the first time it's really era appropriate. And seatbelts visible and stuff. I think we've probably had seatbelts for a while because most of our cars have advanced safety. But this is a point where absolutely every car would have them. If not a little earlier, like in the 70s. And I think that's an airbag steering wheel. We've got airbags for our advanced 80s safety. Just the steering wheel, I think, is like the first airbag that gets added to a car, and they start adding them more and more to different places as the years go on. Putting together interiors feels like such a chore because I need so many different fixtures from different categories and mods to make anything look kind of nice, and I always forget where they are. I spend a lot of time just looking for the fixtures. And these doors were pre-made and close enough, so I was able to get them without too much effort. I could go nuts and add buttons and stuff, but I don't think I'm going to be getting a lot of time spent looking close at the interior. It's mostly just going to be seen from the outside, so I don't want it to be that high detail. I mean, more detail is always nicer. I just don't want to spend the time on it. This is already about an hour and a half build, which is pretty typical for a car with interior for me. Couldn't really settle on a carpet color, just went for gray. Although, I think I might have wanted to choose something a little more distinctive that really says this is carpet and doesn't blend in with like the pleather. And that's the visual design done for the Canguro. I think I'm reasonably happy with it. So now we have variants to make. I want to check for any major changes before I make variants too. In particular, I am wondering if I can get away with just slapping multi-point fuel injection on the engine. So we could go from this carburetor thing to actual fuel rails and individual injectors. Much more modern. Much better for basically everything. Wow, we gain us 6 horsepower, or maybe 4 horsepower. It would gain us horsepower right off the bat, and fuel efficiency. And reliability, although I'd have to turn this quality back down. In fact, let me hold compare. I had the single point at 7 quality, and multi-point at, say, 2 quality. Yeah, it's still better. Less reliable by a lot, actually, but better otherwise. Maybe worth the long-term investment? This is going to be a long turnaround for all our cars. Not a lot of 12-month facelifts here. It's always, oh, I make the new car, update the engine, and then every other facelift has to take an entire car's length. So this could be a time. Let me just go straight to engine engineering. Thanks to this handy project map. I've been trying to use it more, the project map. You just press Control, and you can get to any of these screens. It's faster. Yeah, I guess the engine to 36 months, or 33 months. Whereas the Canguro is at 44 months-ish right now. I can even get back in there and add some quality. It actually did not help with emissions, funny enough. It's worse off than it was before. On NOx, of all things. Okay, now there we go. Why am I getting different results when I do the same thing over and over? I go up, I go down. It's all over the place. Yeah, if I go to 0, 600 NOx, up to 1, 1130, up to 2, 1030, up to 3, 877, down to 2, 601, down to 1, 877. So something goofy is happening with the fuel maps. I guess I don't care how goofy as long as it's passing. That's concerning. Now, quickly going back to the engineering screen and seeing that my engine project time has gone to 45 months is almost as good as being able to actually see it when I press the slider, but it's something. Let's say we hold that at +3, and we'll have developed a big technology. It'll matter for us later as well. So, variants. Right, going back to me to there. Now it gets confusing when I use the project manager. All right, close map with car model. I want to get the list of all the trims, not in one trim. I hit back to engine project designer. No, back to car project designer. Project manager. Okay, I guess that works. Alright, so we are going to need, for sure, a wagon. Now that we've made our slightly larger all-wheel drive car, that seems like an absolute must. And while we're in here, pretty much we just have the wagon and the hatchback. I don't know if we'll make a hatchback. Or the convertible as well if I wanted to make a convertible. Hey, that set itself up pretty nicely. All right. So we have ourselves an all-wheel drive wagon. It's looking decent family utility. Very good in passenger fleet. Compared to average family utility premium, we are looking way ahead. Somehow, competitors are better off-road. So maybe that is what we'll do. We'll give this thing a bit of a lift. See what it can handle. Might drop the wheel size a little bit. Tweak the all-wheel drive bias backwards. A little more 50-50. Gotta give it some cooling airflow. You can suppose that that's a lot bigger on the wagon. Hard long life tires, perhaps? All terrains get us good off-road, but they're not good for anything else. Now, lifting it costs us a point of practicality, but it does get us some of that off-road. Yeah. It kind of looks like those Volvo XCs I remember. We have a red warning. Brakes are bad. In terms of utility brake fade. Go figure. That's the front brakes, too. Let's see. Let's give it some brake airflow. Size up the front brakes. Little brake pads. We can force back down. That'll be good for our utility stat. Technically, it could even get like lockers or something. But I don't know what that's going to do to our engineering time. Rather, I can find out. Let's see. Having just added the wagon, we're at 44 months, almost 45. And if I put a locker on there, we're at 47. It's not horrible, but I am going to be probably kind of desperate for every month that comes up. So we'll leave that on the table. I look at the actual desirability of Family Utility Premium. It doesn't seem that adding that manual locker helps us any. I see. Their actual desire for off-road is 0.3%. So maybe I'm getting ahead of myself trying to make this a better off-road car. And we definitely need to add in more premium version as well. Go ahead and slap a luxury interior on there. I don't think too much else needs to change, honestly. Well, it doesn't pass WES7. It's that inconsistent calculation again, I think. It's not good for my fuel economy to keep adding emissions optimization, but it does help throttle response. I guess it's the, richer fuel. And we have this lean area still that keeps our carbon monoxide down. Hopefully that stays put in terms of emissions. So, what has adding a luxury interior done to our engineering time? That another month. Again, really not that bad. Go so far as to add a luxury cassette. See, these things have an unlock penalty. We have stupid familiarity with the entertainment systems, I guess. Because cassettes must be similar enough to 8-tracks. Which makes sense. Ha. Funny enough, the way the early unlocks work out, the luxury cassette is vastly cheaper in material costs than the premium cassette. I better probably go back to some of those other ones and take some quality off. Even if I can afford the engineering time, the material costs are outrageous. Better keep it at +2 quality. 49. It's interior is going to be a major factor when I do that. I'll save a little bit by taking some time off of the premium cassettes. That seemingly didn't help much, but whatever. Now, I also want to add a cheaper version, but that's only going to add even more time to the interior, my biggest factor. I'll still test it out and see what we're looking at. It might be that this car doesn't get a Meride version right away. That could be acceptable, because this is supposed to be our more premium, larger vehicle. Let's say it got front-wheel drive as well. It's the good fuel economy version. 2-3 more months. Not that bad to add another car to our lineup, but every single thing adding another month or two. We've had almost a year. So I'm going to cut anything. I have to cut that. Let's say we have a Primo. A wagon. Wagon's a boring name. What's the... We have the Elite, of course. I'm going with Escursion, or Escursione, for the wagon. Good enough. Now we're at 49 months. If we spend some money, chop a month off. Get some pressure on. Get some tooling in. Yeah, maybe I don't want pressure. We're putting our first all-wheel drive car together here. Just let them be a little expensive. And the engine won't be finalized until I have the variant of the engine set up for our sports car and our SUV. But I have to tentatively put this in. And this will demand a new factory entirely. So far, we've built everything in Fruinia. Maybe I can buy a huge plot. And this might not be the car to fill it out, but we've got a ton of money. Oof. Just the medium 3 is going to use up most of our cash we have on hand. Although we can't always take loans. 34 months build time means I want 34 months hiring time. Wages and quality end up about there. Ooh, this is expensive fast. Yeah, if we have margins around 50%, we're doing okay. Seems ridiculous to keep the factory reasonably busy. And of course, we are not going to simply sign that off, because we have so much more to do. And now we're in BeamNG to get a look at the new Canguro in the Escursione trim, or wagon. Now, this is all-wheel drive, and that's rather different from the four-wheel drive that we had before on the Cetriolo. we've got a torsion diff in the middle instead of like a locking gear. So all the wheels can turn at different speeds, and it's on all the time, much more streetable. Whoa, that's not a great cockpit camera. Now, it feels a little heavy, and the all-wheel drive is contributing to that, but I think it's not that bad. Our motor is putting out a lot more power with that multi-point fuel injection. And I think that was probably the necessary choice for this bigger, heavier car with all-wheel drive to feel good and drivable. And we can see it gets up above 70, gets to 80 miles an hour, pretty much no problem, even with only 76 horsepower. So it's not fast by any means, but I was going to say it's a car I could use on the modern highway today, but honestly, cornering at 80 miles an hour feels nothing short of awful. The aerodynamics are not really meant for that. Gosh, yeah, the real wheels can lift at 80 in a corner like that. But we see that even with still kind of long gearing, because that's just always what the markets ask for. It's not how I'd like to build the cars necessarily. It still gets up and goes okay. Unless we're down in first, we're having a problem with any of these hills. And our all-wheel drive should let us take it out on a little picnic excursion pretty much no problem. This isn't meant to be a crazy all-terrain vehicle, but the combination of all-wheel drive and a little higher suspension lets it go over fields and feel like it's actually supposed to do that. Pretty much no problem compared to, well, I say that, I've just put up against the tree. I don't know if I can get out of here, but it's not quite that all-terrain. You can also see how it feels on a little bit of dirt over here. Think of an all-wheel drive family car. You figure it can take it on a road like this, and it should handle well. I'd say that it does. The only oddity is that you're in first gear a lot of the time. I mean, we've got our boxer all-wheel drive. We've got the makings of something like an Impreza or Audi Quattro rally car underneath here. We want to build a specialized version later. Out of the sedan, of course. And just like the Coniglio 3rd generation, after we get our first facelift out of the Canguro, we can add more trims. Whoa. Even 25 miles an hour is a little fast for this road. And there you have it. The new from Carota all-wheel drive Canguro. I'd say we have a new sports car to make. We have one factory still on a small plot. Now, we might have to downsize that factory or something. But if we put a supercar in there later, we could maybe... No. We need all of our other factories. I'm deciding if I want our new car to be in a small factory or not. If we can go steel presses and make a monocoque sports car, that could be a lot more profitable for us. They're cheap to make. And I think demand might be there. The Caprice, anyway, is pretty deep in pre-orders. Well, first gotta pick a body shape. And preferably something not front-wheel drive with 2 seat rows. Well, it's gotta be a coupe. If I make this guy rear-engined, it could be a 2+2 still. So can this one. We will try the bean. In, let's say, fiberglass for now. I can actually make a fiberglass body panels and monocoque, but still I think requires steel presses and therefore requires a medium factory. Ah, so hard to decide. Space frame gets short engineering time. That's another benefit. You could consider still building a space frame regular sports car. Well, that does sort of feel like it should be for a supercar, doesn't it? Gotta get that chassis quality in there. Rear-engined double wishbones, because it's the only kind of car we know how to make. And I've got to make a new sport version of our disco motor. Now, as I recall, we had multi-point EFI at, maybe it was +4 quality, or maybe it was like +3. I have to go to the engine project. Can't get directly to from here, just its trim. +3, 6, 6, 2. Alright. I want to try and make that all the same quality level for the most efficient engineering. Otherwise, we're just doing something very silly. Let's tentatively call this the Caesar. Like, maybe this could be a Caprice and the Caesar could be a supercar, though. We'll think about that. Oh yes, more than 100 horsepower. Now we'll have to tune this thing for emissions still, so we might end up going back on that power a little bit, but we'll come back here. What else but rear-wheel drive? Technically, rear-engined all-wheel drive is an option. But that might be kind of goofy. Maybe. Manual, 5-speed, open diff for now. I think we can afford some sports tires. And let's just assume right away, going for some wheels that look like that. Ooh, it's a little big for the car. It really fills out the wheel wells. Alloys for sure. Vented discs. Semi-clad. Bit quality here and there. And of course, manual steering. That's one of the great things about a rear engine car. There's no weight on the front, then the steering wheel is nice and light. For now, standard 70s safety. Yeah, a lot cheaper than advanced 80s and lighter. I always like the best spot for a sports car is probably between the sport and normal presets. Oh, this has a lot of roll angle. And as much as I would like to, I don't think we're going to get this steering graph under control without resorting to staggered tires. That's a lot. Could be good enough. It's a bit of a compromise. Brakes actually ended up lined up pretty nice just to begin with. I gear it for top speed. We end up with around 136 miles an hour. They sure like a long first gear. I don't think a car like this needs the first gear going out to 40 miles an hour just to stay controllable. But that's what we're sitting at. A little under 9 seconds, 0 to 60. That's decent for a car with a tiny engine. And of course, might still get some power out of it. It looks like this car really would benefit from limited slip diff. And this helical diff, or a torsion diff, is the same kind of technology we want to use in our all-wheel drive. So I think they'll both contribute familiarity to each other as we engineer them. It's very expensive to put that in, though. At least it is from what I recall. Wow, these cars can be a lot of production units. That fiberglass body is a lot of man-hours put together, I think. I guess so is the space frame. If I go to monocoque, you can see engineering goes up, production goes down. Whether that's actually cheaper depends on our engineering sliders and how many cars we build in the long run. And off the bat, I'd say we're looking pretty good in Light Sport Premium, and Track, which is basically what we expect to hit with a car like this. Do need to do some of the usual quality spam that is now standard. Putting +5 on, say, the suspension, not very expensive, pretty worth it. If I soft out the brake pads, it's a good source of comfort. I can apparently afford to without causing brake fade. I'm not sure what safety we are going to need. Yeah, they do like it more with a standard safety, being cheaper and all. And an initial engineering time looks to be 36 months, with the drivetrain being the biggest factor outside the chassis itself. Again, we're looking pretty quick here. I'd say that's good. Of course, I'll need to make some variants. First things first, we're not passing Mission 7 like I want. And the reason is NOx. Actually richen up a little bit. And bing, bang, boom, that does it for us. What else can I do? I can go more compression. Then pass the 10.5. And can I afford more cams? Yes, although at some point it actually hurts my performance rather than helping it. We're doing great on throttle response, by the way. Quite happy with that. Put one straight through muffler, be a little louder, which I think might help our sportiness. Then again, reverse flow is already engineered. Even if it theoretically costs more. And if it's anything like our last car, the variants will be mostly based around the Gladiatore engine. Our 6-cylinder. Assuming, of course, that fits. Which I should probably double check before I really go ahead with this. Yeah, it fits. And apparently it makes this thing a track monster. But we'll design that car thoroughly later. What's got to happen first is, once again, visual design. And man, this body is looking awfully modern. And awfully front engine, frankly, even though I did choose a rear engine version of it. It'd be hard to make it look like what I want it to look like. But sometimes how it is in automation. I could have gone with that 1980 body. Would have been that much sooner before we get the old body age penalty. Let's see, front comes in. Window. See the engine down there. Probably gonna get a shelf over it though. I don't think I need to make an engine window in this car. We'll want to fit some cargo there anyway. I can imagine they might be able to fit some cargo. This morph. I don't know what they're gonna like more. I mean, this is better aerodynamics and it looks cooler. But the tall thing gives you some actual space inside. Definitely push the cabin forward, that's for sure. Okay, visual design for the new sports car. I actually kind of had a hard time picking out some wheels that felt appropriate as sports alloys for this period. I settled on those ones, although I'm still not sure I'm happy with it. You also see one of the first things I did is I went to advanced trim. I wiggled those wheels around so they were a bit more centered than the wells. It wasn't too much of an issue when they were smaller, but as big as they got, I kind of had to keep them nice. I also did tweak the tire size a bit, just based on the looks. I spent a while with these Citroen DS headlights, although that wasn't a good idea. And then pop-ups. Definitely like them. And they look better if you use the 3D to move them around. And at this stage, the car's still looking like a 1990 Miata until we add the big plastic bumper. And I want some kind of brake vents down below to represent that we did have that braking arrow slider cranked way up. Still plastic mirrors, still plastic bars on the side. They're just utterly inescapable in every car that I looked at. Gotta have those plastic bars. Like a rule of some kind. I'll tell you now, I spent a while playing with wings, and I didn't find one I liked. Although I did find that when I found that morph there that made the back of the car a little rounder, I like the shape a lot more. And once again, after playing with the arrow for a while, I decided I didn't need those wings. And I definitely wanted some side vents of a similar nature to the ones that we had on the previous generation Caprice. I think I ended up changing those vents later. Of course, same bumpers. I have a dual exhaust in this car. I think they're pretty good. I had a real hard time deciding on the shape of the rear grille. It seems like a lot of rear engine cars from this era hardly had a grille, or they hid it pretty well. I did want to visualize that we had that. I got some slanted bars by 3D placing that, switching it back to 2D. So this wasn't based on a reference, it was just something I did freehand on my own. And maybe for that reason, it doesn't quite look as much like a real car, just that rear grille. Oh, once again, the advanced trim settings, I'm going to refer for interior, and I pushed the firewalls around to have a lot more room. I thought that seemed appropriate in this car, especially since there's no engine in the front. That would seem more premium if I snuck a little bit of wood in there with that plastic. Gives it a bit of character. It's not just a single monocolored mass. Now I think I took that steering wheel off of a reference picture of what was supposed to be Porsche 944 from the era. But I'm sure that was actually a later generation, because I shortly after found some other pictures with a different style steering wheel. It seemed a lot more 80s. And I did come back later and change that. Also, you can see I 3D placed the carrot badge in the steering wheel. I don't know if it looks very natural there, but it gives it a little more character than just being the generic steering wheel. It's pretty unusual, in fact, to see a real car without some kind of badge on the wheel. And this car being a 2+2, the rear seats got no headrests. They're the same mesh as the front seats, but I set the color of the headrest to transparent to hide them. At this time, we have the space frame. I think I may have changed to monocoque later during this. But for a little bit, I had the space frame poking through. So there it is, our new... I think we might keep this as a Caprice successor. Caprice name on there. I was worried this would just look like a Miata, but I think I managed to get something kind of Alfa Romeo-ish, which I'm happy with. And while I was messing around, I did switch it over to unibody as well, which adds quite a chunk of engineering time. But I am considering putting this up in a medium factory and maybe moving one of our other cars in the medium factory over to a large factory. Yeah, as expected, the engineering is pretty much all in the chassis. If I do switch it back to space frame, we're looking at a small change in stats only. And, well, it saves like a whole year, actually. For 10 months. I guess I'm still not settled on what kind of car I want this to be. It will be cheaper as a monocoque, but with some lowered engineering sliders. Now let's clone it. And we can see what it would look like with the Gladiatore engine. And I think maybe for this one too, we could be going over to multi-point EFI. And what else? Stuff. Freeway. Top-end quality. And I can make the forged parts less bad. It's amazing that we're making too much power for a lightweight forged piston. And if I just throw a little emissions optimization in there, we hit WES7 with no real effort. Yeah, 174 horsepower. Still just normally aspirated. Kind of a monster. Let's see, right now it is top speed limited by gearing. Run out to 165. And increasing the first gear costs us some 0 to 60 time, but they seem to prefer how that drives. The tires aren't keeping up. All-wheel drive puts in the GT territory. I think I'm going to skip all-wheel drive for now. Put a luxury interior in. It's a little heavy for track, but people seem to be interested in buying that. Do a little car comparison. So with the 6-cylinder Gladiatore, we are... yeah, it's about as usual. It's far more prestigious, but only a little more sporty. In exchange for being heavier and everything else. If I can compare it to our old Caprese Elite E. Well, it's at least a big improvement over the old Caprese in every way. So that's something we can be proud of. And can I actually engineer that multi-point EFI? The answer seems to be yes. Only just. And then, of course, we have the option of making an absurd turbo version. Well, right. I recall now. We are limited by the engine block in terms of how much power we can put out. And if I go over that, I guess the penalty is not that bad. 5% reliability. And honestly, this has got me wondering if I should axe the turbo version. Yeah, it's fast. 4.2 seconds 0 to 60. 183 mile an hour top speed. But the sportiness is poor. All it really wins out on is prestige. And not quite enough to be a supercar, it seems. I guess I can stiff it up and stuff, but... I mean, I'm destroying the comfort just to get up and track. As usual, the turbo is worse in every way than the normally aspirated one. Not as drivable, not as sporty, not as comfortable. Except prestige, which is huge. And it gets better gas mileage, funny enough, despite making like 70 more horsepower. But, I don't know. I might have to, at least temporarily, cancel our turbo engine here. Could do just the 2 versions. I'm seeing now I'm probably going to put the Gladiatore engine into the small Iagostella factory and move the Disco into the large factory. And we'll get that all sorted out eventually. But, once I've actually got my car designs done, it's going to be like half an hour of just untangling everything. It looks like we're gunning for 20 and 30,000 for the cheaper, more expensive trims. That's all on a new factory with steel presses too. Get that tweaked down. And time to take a break. I'll record more later. One last thing before I export this car to BeamNG. I decided that steering wheel is way too modern. I was looking at a picture that claimed to be of a 1985 Porsche 944, but I think that one was actually a later facelift of that car, because there's a bunch of other pictures with an older looking wheel, and that seems more appropriate for the 1980s. And now it's time to test out the new Caprice. I did decide to call it the Caprice instead of a new name, because it's really the same sort of platform. We've got the rear engine, small motor. This one's built on a steel chassis, but it still has a lightweight body. And I'm pretty happy with managing to look like a 1980s car with these big plastic bumpers. I was worried it looked too modern when I started. Don't love the grille. I didn't really go off a reference picture for that. I just kind of made something up, and it looks kind of goofy. But I think we're doing okay. So we're going to compare to our time with the older generation Caprice. I'm starting with the non-Elite version here. So I think our time with the old Elite was around 2 minutes. This is just the basic trim. We do have the Elite trim to drive as well. We're now making a little over 100 horsepower, and off the line it's feeling good. I really considered putting a wing on the back of this thing, and it didn't seem to be working out in automation. But now that I get it going fast, I'm wondering if I maybe should be reconsidering putting a wing on here. Might have to wait for the facelift. And also, following the guides in-game, I gave it a very extreme tire stagger, and now that I'm driving it, I feel like that might be too much stagger. It feels balanced a little more towards the understeer side than maybe what I'd like. I see BeamNG has added a new lovely crunchy noise for when you're shifting too hard. But this time's getting published. I'm not going gentle on the car. And we learned from last run, you gotta watch out for the snowy spots. Oh. Tried to pull the Takumi Fujiwara and put my wheel in the gutter. Did not improve my time. Well, it wasn't a very confident run, but we're up here at 2 minutes and 14 seconds. A good bit slower than the last time with the Elite. But we'll upgrade engines right away. Now this is with the 6-cylinder Gladiatore, normally aspirated only. Woohoo! I actually like the looser handling balance we get with the big engine. Oh, brakes, brakes, brakes. Automation says this car is barely more sporty, but in BeamNG I can't say that I agree. Our limited slip diff is doing a lot of work for us with this motor. I didn't really notice a difference with the small motor. But it makes the car lovely and driftable. We're not getting that one tire fire that causes the car to go squirrely when it starts spinning. Feeling a little more confident with the car as well. Here's the snowy part. Have to avoid crashing it now. Two minutes and 8 seconds. That felt decent, but it's still a lot slower time. I guess I don't know what to put that down to. But I still feel like the car feels good. Now, in accordance with our new engine updates, we need to make facelifts of our Cetriolo and Coniglio. I'm going to start with the Cetriolo because I think it's going to be less work. The Accompamento seems to be our best seller. So let's design it around that first. Now let's see. So we had a truck version of the Disco engine before. I'm going to clone off of the standard version and see if we need to make any changes. Because I've already set all my quality sliders and I want to keep them the same throughout. And this is making 75 horsepower. Right off the bat, we're at WES 5. So we are going to need some changes to get that WES 7 emission standard we have with our other cars. So, what's good for the trucks? Maybe some balancing mass? We're failing on CO and NOx. That's lovely. These are still 4x4. I mean, this looks like something that should be 4x4 for the most off-road. But going to a more expensive all-wheel drive system could be an option. It gets us more drivability, more prestige, apparently, and more utility. It's more convenient to use. The worse fuel economy, though. I don't know. Maybe for the Cetriolo, its first generation anyway, I will stick with 4x4s. Looks like I need to retune my brakes. The update may have had something to do with that. I don't know. Oh, I can go way softer on pads if I want to. That'll help with the vehicle's comfort. I can go smaller brakes all around. Yeah, I think brakes just got a lot more powerful in the last update. It used to be I was, putting bigger wheels on cars just to put bigger brakes, and now I have brakes that are modestly sized. They're doing just fine. Ooh, I can afford to go to +5 quality in Aero. Again, with the newer updates, the developers are trying to encourage us to use a lot of these quality sliders. So, I'm going to do it. That'll save us fuel and hopefully make the emissions easier as well. Want a spring for a cassette player? Maybe I can if I keep the quality down-ish. Oh, no. Actually, $2,000 change in material costs. That's outrageous. Going to the 8-track. You can just go to +4 quality, get the reliability in there, and stay on 8 tracks. That should be the way for the Cetriolo. And I'll probably keep the Canguro on its cassette player, but its first facelift is going to make the car a lot cheaper because of that. Get some suspension quality in there. Yeah, it's weird. It says that my body tech pool is only 1. If I go to my R&D, I'm sure it should be more. It's more on the other cars. Yeah, we're at +6 tech pool in body tech. And as I'm sure I've explained, but I'll mention it again, the way this works is your tech pool offsets this slider. So you have +6 tech pool, and you set the quality to +6, then all of the costs associated with it, and that's material, production units, and engineering, are equal to 0. Or what they would be if the quality slider was 0. So I don't know if this is just a UI bug, or if it's really going to affect the cost of the vehicle. That quality makes a difference, though. Somehow I got an increase in fuel economy, even though the car got heavier with body quality. It's big for reliability as well. So again, I really hope that's just a visual bug. But the costs, well, it seems to be what it would be if it really was treating it like that. So, not a lot of new features, just plus quality everywhere for this update. And I've got to tune this truck version of the engine. What's it going to take? More cams doesn't necessarily hurt. And lower cams don't necessarily help. Now, I have noticed, and I tuned some larger engines when I was testing out this update. Small engines maybe is not the same, but lower compression does seem to help with emissions. So you up with lean, low compression. Although in that case, again, lower compression, not actually helping. What does help is leaning out the fuel map. I was going to get very lean before I can pass on CO. Ouch. It's an awkward tune. Making this 1.6 liter motor push around the heavy vehicle is not great for emissions. I think what is good for emissions sometimes is actually a larger motor, a milder tune. Now, of course, we have our Gladiatore engine available to us, but that thing's all aluminum and it has like 4 valves, I think, so it's not very reliable. We lost like 3 horsepower. I don't think it's killing us. Similar deal to the trim, just slapping quality on there. And it does pass emissions, so we're good. Now we have this lovely thing here where it says that a certain engineering option is used in other cars in this project. And that way you know they're using the same thing across all your trims. I do wish I could see what quality levels were used by other cars in the same project. So it's easier to synchronize that. Instead, I have to kind of keep it in my head. I missed the safety on this one. It add some safety quality. Safety quality used to be terrible. It was just always more expensive, and people didn't like it. Now, it seems to be a little viable to use the safety quality slider. Alright, the Consegna delivery version ended up with bigger brakes than the others, but otherwise looking pretty straightforward. Now, if we're going to add anything new interesting, I could consider a premium trim version. We're going to get Utility Sport Premium unlocking at some point soon. It's already existing in Gasmia. It's small, though. And Helvetia. That's going to continue to grow. So I could make an Accompamento with like a luxury interior if I wanted to be creative about it. So that's interesting. It looks like a major factor for Utility Sport Premium is safety. And the competitors are much better. They're probably using a unibody rather than a body on frame. And of course, if I go to advanced safety, I kinda have to do it for all of my trims. Because one of the biggest costs is engineering time. And at the turnaround we're looking for, I might be able to afford it still. What are we looking at for engineering time? I want to see spare engineering time on this trim, because I want to get those sliders up, or they already are up. Oh. Ooh. Okay, with the current sliders we have up, it would not be viable to add new safety in a luxury interior. Not viable at all. 103 months. Let's just say that we are not going to do that. maybe we simply won't make that luxury trim right now. And then we're looking at 20 months, so I can really get those sliders up there. Then factories will come back to. Do all the factories at once later. Oh, the game crashed. Ooh, okay. Back from the crash. Back in action. And I come to you with a question, which I will answer for myself. Is 1980 too late for hood ornaments? I'm thinking maybe not. Maybe we can still have some little hood ornaments on our Elite cars. I'm going to put that on the Canguro and the Caprese second generation as well. And I love how clean the front of this is. I love rear engine cars that have just nothing in front. No grill, no fuss. We're going to tamper with it by putting this hood ornament on there. Is this okay? Maybe it is. Yeah, we'll allow it. We'll allow it. Now, we have a lot of tweaking to do in terms of factories and engineering time and everything else. We have just one actual car left to design, and that is the Coniglio III. So first things first, we're going straight from our old 64 horsepower engine to the new multi-point fuel injected. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. I screw up? No, I didn't screw up. Did I? I don't see a standard version of that engine already made. Uh-oh. Yeah, I made a mistake. When I retuned the truck engine, I overwrote the engine that I made for the Canguro, the standard variation. Instead of cloning it, I just edited it, apparently. So I guess I'm going to have to go back and change some things. Yeah, I had hit the clone engine button, but it didn't clone it. I think. Alright, now we have a truck, a sport, a standard. I'll have to go back and set that on the Canguro, which I'm going to do now. Hopefully I shouldn't need to make no changes otherwise. WES6, that's not great. Now, I was worried that tuning emissions was going to be a nightmare for the new cars, but I don't think it'd be for this reason. I've screwed up my tuning and need to go retweak in every single car. Alright, now that should be every trim of the Canguro passing emissions level 7 with a little leaner fuel map. Alright, that tune's a pass. I think that's similar to the tune that I had before. Passing the all-wheel drive? Yes. Alright. 76 horsepower. Good fuel economy. Think we're looking okay. And now on the lovely Coniglio, where there still is no four-door hatchback, unfortunately. Yes, where were we, though? Is it passing emissions? Yes, that's good. And we're sticking to front-wheel drive. Nothing crazy for this. Of course, the Primo trim, I was disappointed by the sales of it before, and it looks like I still will be. Oh, it's a... I don't think I realized it was actually a 2+2. That goes a bit of a ways to explaining it. It could use more seats. Somehow I thought we had 3 seats in here. or 5 seats, 3 in the back. And in fact, then this is really only more suited to being a fun class car, a sports hatchback with its 2+2 seats. I might even slap the sport engine in there and see what happens. Still passes emissions. 104 horsepower. Not doing too great in fun market either. Probably because the steering graph looks like that. Oof. What would it need? It would need wider tires for sure. Yeah, as a front-wheel drive car, it's never get that sportiness all the way up there without ruining the handling balance. LSD helps, go figure. It's now telling me that it likes the shortened up gearing. As the 0 to 60 time gets better, so does drivability, but sportiness actually gets worse, believe it or not. I feel like the gears close together, I guess. Going to cassette does help our comfort, but it adds a lot of money to the total price. So I think that, like with the Cetriolo, I'm going to stick to 8 tracks for now. We can get a point of quality in there. And if we're already on advanced safety, maybe we dare to go to 80s? What's that include? Safety glass, dashboard controls, bumpers. Steering wheel contains an airbag. Fast steering graph has terminal oversteer. That means that our sports hatchback, I'm going to make this the... Let's call it the Sport for now. I didn't plan on making a Sport trim for sure when I came in here, but I decided that's the only thing that our hatchback is good for on the Coniglio. It's not actually as good at being a city car. So we need a wing of some kind. I like these Ford Escort turbo whale tails. Only they don't really work in 2D fixture mode. I'm not totally sure how to orient them nicely. That's not it. That's neat, but too modern. That doesn't conform. I like the basic look of that, although the ends get mangled. Yeah. That's a bit of aerodynamics for our sporty car. We're going to have a real shallow amount of angle. Doesn't do much, just enough to stop it from being like completely terminal oversteer at high speeds. Wow, that seems to have added a lot of drivability. This car actually really needed a wing. I didn't think that the frickin' Coniglio would get a wing before the Caprice. But here we are, our first car with proper aero features. The Coniglio III Sport. And, what would look good? I think it needs a sporty white paint color. Oh, we're getting there. There we are. That looks like something a little bit familiar, doesn't it? It's still a front-wheel drive, but, We'll take it. And a quick check. Are we out of control with that safety for engineering time? I won't know until I update everything. What a pain. I have a different amount of tech pool on this body. That's really weird. Really weird indeed. We have a Merde wagon. I definitely want to add a Merde or a Primo 4-door to this lineup. You didn't try to cram the all-wheel drive in here, but maybe I won't for now. Yeah, I'm noticing an increased demand for short gearing on the first gear at least. And that might just be something to do with the latest update. Which, I mean, I'm fine with that. I was just complaining about how the gearing seemed too long a lot of the time. And a little bit wider tires gets our steering graph sorted out. Apparently I had the Elite Coniglio on hard compound tires the whole time. I've moved to mediums. That'll be more comfortable. And I could spring for a cassette player in this one. I think I'm going to do it and see if I'm not screwed on engineering time later. The delivery van can get even shorter gearing. It's not as big of a compromise on drivability, and it gains me a lot of this utility stat down here to have a nice low bottom gear. And even though it's not the most comfortable, I'm going to give it a very high top gear as well. It looks like I can afford to do that in terms of transmission reliability now, either thanks to the update or it being a later year. Because last time I was crunched on my maximum difference between the first and last gear. Now it's this far apart, and it says I still have some to spare. And that's going to help fuel economy. So I think that this a good delivery tune. And you can see it's optimized for light delivery, heavy delivery not so much. Could try to throw hydraulic power steering on this thing. But if I discount the quality, make up for engineering time, it's not as good as my existing manual power steering. Or manual steering, I should say, not power steering. And we have this over-braked because it'll be able to use more total braking force when the car goes full. There's more weight down on the wheels. Alright, that's our existing 4 trims updated, and 1 trim changed to a completely different purpose. And in terms of engineering time, we have some room to spare. Now it looks like the drivetrain is our biggest component. Putting the limited slip diff onto the sport version of the car is actually costing us quite a lot. So I might come into here. Cost 2 whole points of sportiness to take the LSD away. LSDs sure are cool. But if I knock a couple points of quality off, How much does that help? It does help a chunk. Okay, so we need more trims. And I'm thinking that probably the first thing that we need is a Primo 4-door. Now that our Primo has been largely eliminated from the lineup. In fact, if white is going to be our sports color, I think the Scatola delivery needs to take one of the Cetriolo colors. Yeah, make it that beige color. That's a little more boring. I'm going to clone this off of the Elite just because it's already a 4-door, and I already adjusted the fixtures for that purpose. Only we'll be changing the paint color back. We'll be going back to our classic carrot badge. We'll call it a saloon because you have to say something fancier than 4-door or just car. And we get, yes, full-sized seats in back. With a premium 8-track player. And premium seats. I know I haven't gone nuts on customizing the seats, but well, it is what it is for now. And we'll go with the hard tires. They are not nearly as nice to drive on, but fuel economy is a big factor, I think, still in this market. Little suspension tune, and I've already done all the quality stuff, so I think we're pretty much there. And maybe I want a Merde saloon. Man, steel wheels don't necessarily save us enough money to justify their inclusion. They just make the car look cheaper. I don't know, they're already on one of the trims. In fact, we can save a little money by making the brakes hella small. It hurts sportiness and utility, which are not this car's main goals. What else will make it cheaper? Cooling airflow can probably stay right in the middle. We already pay for the under tray, so we'll keep it. Losing a transmission speed doesn't save us enough to be worth it. There. Alright. Now we've got a cheap saloon and wagon. We've got a sports hatchback. That's the only hatchback in this whole thing, because the hatchback is a 2+2, and cheap markets want more seats. Then we've got we actually have a cheap van as well, so we have 3 cheap trims. 2 cheap trims. 3? 3. Yeah, we have a cheap wagon, van, saloon. We have a Primo saloon only. We have an Elite saloon. And I guess the Primo is kind of equal to the Sport hatchback, although that does use a different engine and some other stuff. Engineering time sitting at 24 months, so we can afford to bring that pressure and funding down and tooling up, which will be good for a larger factory. And again, I'm skimming over the factories for now. Ooh, Khalid North is at maximum size. I have to take probably most of these cars off of their existing factories and retool to other factories. Now, that's 6 trims. Am I missing anything crucial? Take a moment to kind of reread some of those comments. Aha. So, someone on the YouTube comments did point out that there's a version with more seats. It's a hatchback. But as far as the game's concerned, this is a coupe. So, if I want to use this as a city car, we get how much of a penalty? Let's find out. Ooh, 18%. Yeah, no. This is just not considered a city car by those buyers. So they really would insist on getting the 2+2 instead. Only they don't actually want to buy it because it's 2+2. So there's really no winning in that situation. Alright, so with putting the supercar off just a little longer, this is our current lineup that I need to do all the engineering and factories for. I'm thinking of targeting a turnaround time of 48 months. Alright, now starts a long and what hopefully won't be the boring part of the video. I've got to shuffle around all my factories. Right now, I need to estimate how many cars I need to produce of each. And it looks to me like we are somewhere in the vicinity of, gosh, maybe making half as much as we need to. Here change 0, 100, yeah. So right now, it looks like basically everything is having pre-orders come in almost like as fast as I can make the cars. Or twice as fast even. So yeah, let's go for like large factories where we can. Now, again, the plan is everything out to 48 months. So, starting with the Cetriolo. If I spend another $2 million, get the tooling even more up there. These stand to be some extremely cheap, reliable cars. We have a 34% modifier to reliability for a final value of 109. These Cetriolos of this generation are going to be unkillable. Can't believe I actually got the slider up to 100. And we have a factory on a large plot, so we can expand to a large factory. Now, currently, we're making... doesn't estimate the number of cars anymore. Okay, no, okay. Yeah, if I just go to large 1... I'm hoping that should be sufficient for now to cover demand. It's going to cost me $500 million. I might throw a QA testing facility in there too for another $80 million. Upgrade time of 12 months. Keep that all stuff where it is. Tooling quality gets remarkably expensive once you get into these larger factories. It's also kind of worth it, I don't know. Automation has a bonus of having to hire less employees as well. And this QA facility add-on, I haven't messed with the add-ons much so far. I think most of them make more sense in the larger factories. It's gonna reduce the penalty for turning my QA up high. I don't want recalls on these. I'm also seeing that we've got aluminum presses available and SMC injectors available. So if I wanted to, I could be making monocoque cars with aluminum bodies efficiently, or fiberglass bodies efficiently in a larger factory, which is maybe something that I will do for the second generation Caprice. And then semi-space frame is basically just monocoque with aluminum material. As far as the customer is concerned, it's basically the same sort of thing. And that's estimating the factory will be not quite at full shift. So we can make these cars cheaper. Alright, so this is estimating that this factory should be easily able to handle all the shifts I have. I'm going to try and trust in that graph for now, although maybe that's not the smartest decision. Set my max shifts to 2. My target shifts to like 1.8. And up the worker quality. Everything's made in Fruinia so far. So that has effects on how easy it is to both hire any workers at all and how easy it is to hire good workers. Now the 3rd generation Coniglio is looking at a very short engineering time. I'm going to crank that tooling. $30 million for a big update to our car is basically dirt cheap for us at this point. And ooh, it's trapped in a medium factory. I may need to add a facility. So we can see right now 70% efficiency. That's a huge penalty if you're going above. It's like 3 to 4 trims is probably where we want to be at with these things in a medium factory. And we're already at medium 3. There's not much more we can do to get more out of this thing. Actually, there is more. I can crank these sliders. It's expensive by a lot. Now, this seems to be a sweet spot with automation in terms of profit per car. Going too heavy isn't going to help us. I'm going to add a QA on this as well. So I can have a very low chance of having recalls happen. But it seems to estimate up here that as I increase tooling quality or automation, I'm just losing money. Because it's very expensive to do that on a factory with steel presses, I think is the reason. Forecast looks good, but as we can see, this facility is going to be overworked. And it's not even making all the cars. I don't know if I want to make this a medium factory or a large factory. We can see based on my 38-month construction time for the factory, I'm getting close to that in my months to hire up workers. Just tweaking the wages down, quality up until that gets close. Better put a QA on it. Oh man, 700 million with the sliders just to make a medium factory. That's probably big enough then. So we have 2 factories and each is making some of the trims. Now let's see, the Canguro. Basically all we have to do is spend a little extra money and get it to 48 months with baseline sliders, which is going to be good enough. We have it in a new factory, which is going to be, maybe I will make this one a large factory. This can be a single factory doing this whole model. And forecast says, won't even come close to using up a large factory. Okay. Let's go back to medium 3. See, earlier it said this was a good plan, and now it's telling me it thinks I'm going to lose money. I don't know if I'm competing with myself by moving those other cars into larger factories as well. Well, if it thinks I can pull off one shift, maybe it'll be okay. Now, because I want to put this up in a medium factory, maybe with some fiberglass SMC injectors, or a fiberglass bias would be a lot cheaper, I am going to have to manually cancel the production of the Iagostella factory that's making the Caprese E. One, because that car is just old. and 2, because we're trying to replace it, I'll have to configure that factory for no project, and it'll stop working for a while. This medium 1 factory is a lot cheaper. I tell you what. And it looks like it's estimating our factory is a little too big. And that's okay. It means we can mark these cars down. That thinks they'll make less money if the cars are cheaper, huh? Guess that's what we're estimating for now. I'll set some conservative factory shifts. I think that's all the cars set up. And the only one with 2 factories as of now is the Coniglio III. Then the Cetriolo gets a large factory, the Canguro gets a large factory, and the Caprese is going into a medium factory, whereas its predecessor was in a small factory. Now, we get to move these disco engines into a big old factory. With lots of tooling. Oh yes. In fact, I think it's okay to invest a lot into our engine here. This can be sure against so many cars. A little bonus to the price or reliability of this disco engine is going to affect our whole lineup nearly. And as of now, it is in a medium factory. I like to put it in a large factory, and we have a large plot. It's where the Gladiatores are being built. So, I'm going to take the Gladiatore off of that factory first. I'm going to move this to Khalid. It's odd that doesn't give me the option to make a smaller factory. I guess one of these things requires a medium factory. Which one? It says that this should be pretty underworked, honestly. Because, yeah, the Gladiatore really only going into the fancy trim of the Caprese right now. Could have put it back in the small factory. That seems a little more sensible. Hell, I don't even need to engineer the Turbo D. I'm not putting in a car right now. We'll bring that back later. Turbos have been a very frustrating thing for us. Of course, the Gladiatore does have reliability issues. I'm wondering if a turbo disco could be an answer for us. Not immediately, but soon, to wanting an even sportier version of the disco motor. In fact, if I could make basically all the engines in one factory, and then just have a separate factory for the supercar stuff, that could work out pretty well for us. I originally thought I'd be using the Gladiatore as a premium car engine as well, and that hasn't happened yet. I might need to engineer an iron block 6-cylinder to really fill that role, because the reliability is so important. Now the Disco is getting 2 factories because that's cheaper than what we were doing. I'm going to make this second factory as large as it needs to be for this overworked warning to go away, basically. Which appears to be a large one. So I have a large one and a medium 3 producing these engines. Oof. I will not be able to hire enough workers. Okay, and when all is said and done, we cannot get the loan. they will loan us 71% of the $3 billion that I have queued up for factory construction. And at a very high interest rate, which is not ideal for us. Now, I do have almost $1 billion on hand, and maybe 4 years of steady income to look forward to, which could be another, maybe even $2 billion. But I'm sort of feeling like I should pare back somewhere, because the interest rate is going to be problematic. If I drag it out to basically forever. So, what can I scale down? The Canguro was in a medium 3. See, I'm at odds with all of these predicting not that many shifts for factories, and our current cars that we can't even keep up with at all in sales for our current factories. You know, it's irresponsible, but maybe I'm going to take a $3 billion loan and plan on coming up with the rest of the money through revenue. And we'll end up paying a couple $1 billion in interest. I'll make a save file for this stuff. And, yeah, I might end up coming back to this save file, but, yeah. Alright, I just had to make sure all these facelift names were matching our scheme of using letters. So, yeah, I've made a save file. Hopefully we'll have to come back to it. We have a giant 48-month plan that's going to take over basically all of our factories. And, ooh, some of them are going to shut down for retooling on the early side. That will be a problem for us. I'm going to mark up our prices on the stuff that I can't sell enough of, or can't make enough of to sell, which right now is everything. Alright, let's go forward one tick and see that our money is still coming in like we expected it to. Yep, cash is on the way in. Let's just hope it's enough. And how is our marketing doing? Well, I think we're basically spending enough money right now, which is good, because I don't want to spend any more money. Our core demographics are almost 90%, which even Killerob thinks is impressive, and he made the game. And we are currently spending a ton of money in Gasmia, and we're getting our growth for it. So I don't think we need to spend more right now. These year-over-year changes of 4% is predicting, that's a lot. That's fast growth in terms of market awareness. And of course, now it is 1980 in the country of Fruinia. Now, Fruinia has done a lot to characterize the nature of our company, because we're making our cars in this small, hilly country with narrow roads. They like sporty cars. And of course, Fruinia is most similar to the real-life country of Italy. But people often say, what country stands in for Japan? And that's maybe Vianta here, which the lore says was once part of Fruinia, but got taken by Gasmia in the war or something that happened before 1946. But Fruinia, once again, stands in for Japan. So it's kind of like Japan as well. Now, if it's 1980 in Japan, what does that mean? It means we all just got done watching Mobile Suit Gundam. Heck yeah. If only we could advertise our cars with a giant robot. But unfortunately, I think that sort of autism is just a little bit ahead of our time. And maybe we're not a big enough company either. You need to be big like Toyota to do that. apparently. But enough nonsense. We're moving on, and we're hoping not to get completely crushed by the fact that most of this engineering time is going to happen while our factories are shut down, which is not really something that I thought about when I signed off on a loan, because we're moving some of these into big factory upgrades. Engine factories are already being overworked. That's not a shocker. I'm just going to hope that our sales and pre-orders altogether are enough. And in fact, what else I'm going to do, edit our factory shifts to be basically a maximum of 3 shifts all around. We're going to overwork our factories day and night in order to sell more cars in the short time we have before they shut down. And that's caused an immediate huge bump in revenue. We're now sitting on $1 billion cash, although really what we need is $2 billion cash. I'm happy to say that emissions benefits are paying out as well. All right, we've entered some of the factory construction, and money is still flowing in. I guess that's partly because we do have multiple factories operating. So I can see, yeah, Khalid East and Car Factory 4 and 5, I forgot to name, are shut down. But Khalid South and North and Ia Gastella, that makes the old Caprice, are still operating. And our engine factories will be operating for another year or so. So it's looking like that $2 billion in cash that I was worried about needing is going to be on hand. Thank God. Yeah, some quality issues. Ooh, expensive recall. A small issue in the production of Coniglio III. A total of 85,000 cars are affected. I'm going to do the quiet recall, as we just fix it without saying anything. We don't send letters out. Now it's 1982. I think we're doing okay-ish on money. I did want to consider an extra little project. A supercar, which now in the year of 1982 is a fully fledged market. A lot of manufacturers are either dedicated to making the fastest and most amazing road and track cars around, or they're focused on selling normal cars, but they're selling them to boost their prestige and test out new technology, which is the situation we're in. Now, something I found funny in automation is that the coupe version of this sedan is considered perfectly valid to be sold in the supercar market, which doesn't 100% track to me, but whatever. We have this 1989 body that could be valid for a supercar. This is a mod. This 88 body is kind of nice. There's nothing too crusty about it. Let's see what kind of mid-engine can fit in this thing. Let's say fiberglass body, because that's tech we're working with. Space frame for sure. Mid transverse, maybe? Either way works for us. And double wishbones are still the only real option, although I think soon we should unlock push rods, which is a really cool suspension type where the springs are in there sideways. That's pretty much just for supercars and track cars. Go low on chassis quality, want to be cheap. And we'll make a dedicated supercar engine. Someone wanted to see if we could make a V10. And it looks like we can't really fit one in this car. You know, if I do want to use all of my early unlock, I could. I don't know if I do. Still add a lot to the time. I could wait until you get aluminum silicate, which is a block material they'll probably want to use for my more modern engines. So it could be good to get an experience in. That's coming out in just 5 months. Maybe I'll wait until 1983. I'm keeping an eye down here on when the engine factory shuts down, because that's when I need to stop producing the old Caprice. Just for the goofiness, I do like the idea of making a V10. I put it in transverse, kind of fit a decent sized one. Yeah, no problem actually. 3.6 liter V10. It's kind of a formula car kind of engine. Someone in the comments suggested it though, and I might just tune it and see how it looks. With an aluminum silicate block, which is something I want to gain experience in, because I think that when we replace the Disco in the future for our final engine to use in the 2000s, it's probably going to be aluminum silicate. And dual overhead cam 4-valve, because that again is probably what I want my final economy engine to use. VVT intake, that's a major fuel economy item, so it's going in here. Multi-point EFI, what else? And just normally aspirated, we're pushing 320 horsepower. I think that might be enough power to make a supercar in 1983. And if it's not enough, we can turbo it later. Assuming the block can handle it. That reminds me, I'm actually just going to overbore it by a little bit. And then underbore, so it doesn't blow up. Now, I do want this thing to pass emissions, and we will see how that part goes. Not using a lot of quality on the stuff that has early unlocks. Reliability is not a big factor. We can get our performance in other ways. And we'll use the same all-wheel drive system that we're already starting to get familiar with. Do I want to be working on fully clad under trays? I'm not sure if I want to include that in my normal cars or not later. I'll think about it. Ooh. I gotta take the quality off for it, but ABS is here. That is one of the big technologies that I wanted to research ahead of time before putting up my normal cars. And putting in a supercar is the way to do that. I think air suspension would be cool too. Seems like a supercar thing. If we really want, we can use it in luxury and sports trims. Yeah, look at that engine in there. I'm doing what I can to get this steering graph turned around. I hope I can avoid staggering the tires, although for a supercar, it's not that big of an issue if I have to do that. But it would be cool if we happen to have the cheap supercar as they go. It would fit our brand image. And in fact, before I do any tuning, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Is the basic project viable in terms of engineering time? Yoink. Yoink. Yeah, map. Yeah, I think so. What about the engine? Engine family is a problem, because the V10's an early unlock and the block material is an early unlock. Although, I kind of like, that's what I want it for, you know? Like, why make a supercar engine if you're not testing out your new tech? Maybe it's time to make a shoddy supercar engine. Oof, wow. Every family quality takes a chunk off the top power. It kind of hurts to watch. Yeah, I know V10 was suggested, and they make a cool sound. But we actually don't even have familiarity with that stuff. I could go V6. I might as well go Boxer 6. I'm back to making Gladiatore again. What the hell? I did this already. And it's only going to make the kind of power we want if it's a turbo. We need that 300 horsepower. Although, making it that shape does take, like, 3 years off the engineering time, which we need. Yeah, I want to get it under 30 months in grand total. -3 quality. Oh, man. That's put together in a hurry, I tell you what. Get it in 32 months with pretty low pressure. But it's going to have to be a turbo. Oh, and that breaks a block too. Because I made a negative quality engine block. Of course it does. And it doesn't fit that way, but I think I can flip the engine around. Alright, we go to mid-longitudinal. And that doesn't fit. It really only can fit transversely. I could make it a rear engine, still all-wheel drive, but rear engine car. Then how much engine can I fit? All of the engine seems to be the answer. What a meme machine. Yeah, at least if I make the engine just bigger, it can handle, looks like about 400 horsepower before the block starts to break. Then I have to actually tune it for that, though. And my flow chart is not working anymore. That's also great. Now, of course, when it was a normally aspirated V10, it revved to like 9,000 and was cool as hell. This can't rev that high, it just valve floats. Also, the con rods can't seem to handle it. So just as soon as I kiss the Turbo Gladiator goodbye, we have basically another Turbo Gladiator. Because that's what fits in the car and fits in our engineering time budget, is this instead of a cool V10. I haven't even properly fucking set this thing up yet. Let's go twin turbos. We have 2-cylinder banks, right? Then things get funny. And make it smaller. Much smaller. We're at almost 420 horsepower, and we're even nearly passing WES7 emissions like we wanted. Of course, we are already stressing out the block, and that's not going to get better with later generations of this engine. Turns out it does not need sporty cams. That's a final tune. There's some big noticeable turbo lag, but at least there's a usable region of power. It goes all the way from 4,200 to 7,300. So you get 3,000 RPM out of the 7 you can actually drive in during a race. Shallowing out the cams helped. I like this pop and emissions optimization on there. Bing, bang, boom. It passes emissions. That's the great thing about turbos, is I can have a supercar and pass emissions no problem. So I guess we went kind of the Jaguar route. They wanted to make their XJ220 originally with a big V12, and they switched to a turbo V6. And we've gone the same path. We've gone to a turbo 6-cylinder instead of a bigger engine. Ooh, high flow cat's worthwhile. I think if I do that, I can even down tune the turbo more. I don't know if the markets actually care, but low reliability for supermarket, that's a good sign. That is one downside, I think, compared to the other engine. There. We'll get it right at 420 horsepower. We'll call the engine the Caesar 420. Although then again, I was at green in the markets on Super with that V10, and now I'm at yellow, and I do want this car to pay for itself. It doesn't have to be super profitable, but I want all this research I'm doing to get paid for by the customers, not by me. Well, it probably needs a complete retune. Yes, it does. Now that it is rear-engined, we absolutely cannot get away without getting some wider tires on the back. That's looking a little more reasonable. It did turn into a 200-mile-an-hour car at some point with a 4-second 0 to 60, which I'll probably compromise on. Oh, no. Increasing the gearing does not reduce my 0 to 60 time, so it's absolutely grip limited. 36 sportiness is not great for a super/hypercar, I will tell you that. And I think the problem is these brakes. They need airflow. Okay, with a proper tune, we're now looking like something they actually want to buy. Only I'm still seeing a reliability penalty per frickin' supermarket. So these things are not going to get far. Going to rear engine? It gives us the option of +2 seats, but that cuts our comfort in half, because the car is too small. And I don't think this car is sounding like GT, so we can stick to 2 seats only. I think that's fine. I'm adding lots of quality to the body, to the interior, just because that's some place that I can make up some of that reliability on. Gosh, the turbo needs quality too, doesn't it? Easy to forget about. If I take a little off of the RPM limiter, it helps too. Aha. If I increase the tire profile, I can save $2,000. Even though this is not going to be a cheap car, I think that the low-profile tires aren't going to be worth it for that case. Yep, sure enough, manual steering is where it's at. I'm trying to put quality spam on this. This cheap. Give it a good steering rack. Huh. There's an odd threshold where my engineering time goes nuts. Just do this. Oh, wait, no, I can't put quality on that. That's why I left it at 0. Because I have ABS. I can't give it a good power steering with quality unless I invest that quality into the ABS as well. Ah, so frustrating. But I need that ABS at low quality because it's expensive in terms of engineering time. And I guess the body gives me enough downforce that I do not need a wing. Sportiness, drivability, comfort. We're a little behind on sportiness, a little behind on drivability, a little ahead on sportiness. Low on comfort and prestige. So I'd say we're in the average area for a supercar. Not that mind-blowing. And we're still at good engineering time. In fact, I might try and put a little +1. See what happens on that ABS. That adds more than a month right away. Now the engine, I think it ended up at 39. What the hell? It was at 32 months earlier. Still mostly family. Now these are such bottom end sliders for the engine. Ah. I thought I had it 32 months. Where did I go wrong? It's because I went to twin turbo? No, that's not it. Ah, I can take another quality point off, but it hurts. It hurts so bad to be making a crappy designed engine. When you get the slider down here, this is how you end up with your car getting taken apart on YouTube 20 years later with some mechanics saying, here's where they screwed up. I can't believe they designed it this way. You don't know how it was, man. We were in a hurry. I lost a couple of valves. Not worth it. I need that valve airflow. Very unreliable engine incoming. And even though I want to farm reliability, I'll have to put some pressure on it, not like 0, unfortunately. So there, 32 months. And I guess they're all taken up, the engine factories. I want to build another small factory just for this. I think I might. It's $100 million, but I like to have a small factory around. I'll put on a large plot. That way, if I want to move the Gladiatori into it later, if I make more of them, or another 6-cylinder engine. And then the factory determines the business model. I'll want to go into that factory the Caprice was. And probably at very low shifts. I might even downsize the factory. Yeah, it says if I actually price it up into the supercar market, the small factory will be just dead, because small 3 isn't actually that small. Upgrade time months, -1. Building cost, -$2 million. It still says I'm not going to sell enough for a small factory. I'll just target half a shift, and if it gets busier than that, I'll have to change it. And I'll aim at a $75,000 price to dealerships. And then they'll probably mark it up to 80, 90,000. Now, it's only missing one thing, and that's the big visual design. Alright, so our big supercar. Do we want it in the same sport red that our cheap cars are in? Maybe in the purple? Tough decision. Bright green. Maybe purple for now as a default. I'm not sure I'm settled on this, though. We might need a new supercar color. Just to get it started off, what do I want? Maybe from this retro sports pack. That looks like it could be some supercar wheels. No, that's it. The swirly 6-spoke. The 3-spoke's just obnoxious. Now the Caesar. Designing supercars is always fun, but I don't do it that much. You can get away with a little more weird stuff, though. Have it still look like a real car if it's a supercar. Going for the same pop-up headlights that we had on the cheaper Prius. And for the bumper, I wanted something that was like semi-painted. I looked at some nicer Porsches and Ferraris, and they have got the plastic bumpers, but they sort of try to conceal them with some extra paint. And I believe I went and added some more layers to this, so it looked like an actual rubber bumper that had some painted pieces instead of just part of the car's body shape. Still plastic door handles, still seeing a lot of plastic. The theme seems to be that half plastic, half painted is the premium car look. Yeah, and the other theme of this episode, plastic sidebars are inescapable. So there we have, yeah, the plastic rearview mirrors with a painted upper portion. For a minute, I entertained the idea of those louvers, but because the glass goes all the way around, it actually doesn't work. That's you need like a metal, more of a rear pillar for those to attach to. I also wanted to demonstrate some ventilation for the rear engine, and I struggled a while to settle on something that I liked. I eventually settled on some scoops that were kind of high up on the shoulder of the car. Something like the famous Ferrari door vents could also be valid. That would imply that there's like radiators there, which there could be. All chrome on any default fixtures gets removed, replaced with plastic, of course. Yeah, big nameplate badge, definitely like that. And I decided this car had aerodynamics as too much of a high priority for us to have the carrot sculpture on the front. Oh yeah, I wanted to make the chassis piece wider inside, but that actually moves the wheels, so I had to then inset the wheels for everything to look okay. I haven't messed with advanced trim settings much before these last couple builds. One of the interiors they actually looked at was a Lotus Esprit from the era, and it had kind of a pod for the driver. That's kind of more racing-ish compared to a passenger car, so it's only easy to see for the driver. I kind of wanted to emulate that. I am actually building a dashboard. I have a few pieces here, which is also something I haven't done much before. Yes, our supercar needs a fancy computery display screen, of course. I think we can probably afford to build something like that. Extremely 80s. Still a manual shifter. Obviously. I don't really have any rhyme or reason between picking a certain type of shifter fixture. I just use one that kind of seems to look nice. It took me a while, but I settled on some entertainment console stuff. And that lower dash piece actually has sections that I can change the color of. So I was able to set one to transparent so you can see inside the little loose space for your keys or whatever. And we have a big early airbag steering wheel. Same seats as in the Caprice. Different color scheme. Only two of them. I've been liking these door panels a lot for this episode. We're approaching something like a unified design language, but only because I like those and I'm lazy. They're easy to use. Yes, it took me a while to find all the parts, but I want to do something a little more ambitious with the rear of this car, instead of just covering everything with a parcel shelf like I normally do. Of course, to look like an actual space that you're meant to see, I have to cover up that chassis, because you just don't see bare chassis like that on a simple car. Looks like our first proper supercar from Carota, the Caesar, is ready for a test run. Now, of course, it's just a prototype because we haven't finished engineering yet, and it's suffering from a bad case of single exhaust. The engine doesn't look quite right, but I think we're looking pretty good here. We ended up sticking the rear engine after all. Didn't think we'd do, and a Boxer 6. So let's see how it handles with a rear engine all-wheel drive. I don't think I've ever made one of those in automation before, so hopefully it's good. Oh, it feels pretty light. Oh man, I should maybe have I almost could use a little front bias in the all-wheel drive. And it really needs downforce. Car's a top speed of over 200. We get way too fast in the slingshot here, I can tell. Oh, Yeah, that's fine. Nothing's wrong. Yeah, so the automation markets don't call for it, but in BeamNG, this thing is absolutely ready to get all the downforce it can find. And some more brakes. This car's getting a little too fast for me. Certainly fun. It's not easy to drive. Yep. Just making it all-wheel drive does not tame the rear engine. That's what we learned today. So, leave a comment. What kind of wing are we putting on this thing in the next facelift? Because it definitely needs one. Well, now that we've messed around in the test track a bit, I think it's time to sign off the Caesar with another save file in case I've screwed myself somehow. Although I really hope I don't have to go back to an earlier one, because I'll have to export, copy that stuff I've done. It took quite a while. And I won't be able to manually cancel the Caprese factory now. It's just going to happen when the Caesar goes. So we'll get a bit of a warning about engines not being available. Now, in fact, I need to pause taking more pre-orders. Can I do that? Pause pre-orders. Pause pre-orders. Hopefully that actually works. We're going to have to pay back all the deposits we got from people. That's never fun. And of course, you can see during factory construction, we are losing millions of dollars per month, which we'll write off on our taxes. It looks like, indeed, we don't need to worry about going actually bankrupt because of this, though. Oh, hang on. Negative company valuation. That's concerning. We've just paid back our pre-orders, maybe, too. We've built up some new pre-orders, but not as much as we had before. And issue, higher refresh cost, that's fine. I panicked for a second. I saw the company valuation was negative $1.5 billion, which is definitely a bad thing. Also, this breakdown of company valuation is new. Factory plots, buildings, cash, $4 billion in debt. That's that interest coming back on us. But I thought that was our outflow. I was like, what the hell happened? We lost $1 billion in a month. That didn't happen, though. We're fine. We have cash on hand. And we just need to pay back the $4 billion in loans we have, apparently. Alright, so now it's 1984, and money is coming in. It's going to run a couple months through the summer of 84, and see, it does look like we're starting to catch up on pre-orders quickly with the Caprese and Canguro. The Coniglio is falling behind on pre-orders. It needs a lot more production. Yeah, so the Caprese and the Canguro are catching up on their pre-orders pretty quickly. Our small car, the Coniglio III, is falling behind on pre-orders. That has 2 medium factories right now, and it really needs one of them to be a large factory. The Cetriolo is also pretty deep in pre-orders. So our it's still the best seller. It's gone from the passenger accompagnamento to the delivery consegna. And that reminds me, before I forget, I went in not planning to make a sport trim of the Coniglio. I almost forgot we actually had a name suggestion for it. The Arrabbiata. That sounds a lot better than sport, don't you think? And we've had another suggestion that the Merde really hadn't ought to be French. It should be an Italian merda. And I guess I can't help but agree with that. And I guess as of now, the Coniglio is the only model in our lineup with a merda trim. So we need to plan even more factory expansions, either just directly or coming with a facelift. Let's see, revenue now looks like 23 million per month. That could even flip and go into the red as we catch up on our pre-orders on the Caprese and Canguro and start building up some stock on hand. As usual, delivery cars are highly desirable. Outrageously desirable, to the point that I think that something must still be wrong with the delivery cars that the AI is making. Let's see our markets here. We can check that sales breakdown, see what we're up against. Cross off Luhan or Hannah for now. Or leave them in even. So worldwide, what's our biggest markets first? Delivery is huge for us. All countries, not just Verunia. Yeah, delivery is huge. Our second biggest seems to be commuter. So that's small fuel-efficient cars, but they want 4 doors on them, not a hatchback. City is doing just okay. Oh, family, actually. Family's bigger than commuter. So that's kind of what we're targeting with our new Canguro. Family Sport. Here's what's going to be selling in there. And of course, Light Sport Premium, some Super. We haven't sold a car to the hyper market yet. I think there's barely any buyers. GT. Makes sense. Let's see, how are we doing in, let's just say our biggest one, light delivery. Looks like we have become the #1 best-selling brand in light delivery vehicles in the whole world. And that's probably largely owed to the fact that we have 2 overlapping models, the larger Cetriolo and the smaller Coniglio, both with delivery options. Although, I guess the same can be said of all things, Family Small 5 Verunia, where both of their best-selling light deliveries are van variants of commuter cars. I guess that makes sense. How are we doing on reliability? We hit 81 for both of them. So yeah, we're ahead of the competition on reliability. That's hard to do, but we've done it. Oh, family. Family's a big category for us. And even though it's one of our biggest categories, well, first off, I'm seeing 1,600 cars sold on that screen, and 2,500 cars sold almost on this screen. And that really should be the same number. So I don't know what's going on there. But anyway, family cars. So the Coniglio III Merida is our best seller in family, closely followed by its more expensive Primo variant. Then the wagon, the camper, and then behind the camper is the Canguro Primo. So that's not selling as many, units as I'd like. It is more expensive by far than any of these. You can see that, though. And hopefully that'll go down with our next facelift. We are at least ahead of Vizere, I think. There's Dunbar 3. They're still making the Model 2. But they're more on like luxury anyway. In the fun market, the Coniglio III Sport is in fact doing well, although well is still kind of a small number of sales. And apparently, not that many more sales than the frickin' station wagon. I guess that's what being cheaper will do. Vizere has the Lyre fun premium trim. How are we comparing to an actual human car? Let's see. We're a little newer. Looking at 60 drivability, 28 sportiness, 26 comfort, 77 reliability. Yeah, we're way more reliable than the Vizere. In fact, we're pretty much better all around. And not too much more expensive. I'd say we're kicking ass, although it helps that this is a little bit of a newer model. Light Sport, we are getting up there in terms of sales. With 100 sales for the Caprese Primo, 74 for the Coniglio III Arrabbiata. Actually, it's funny. It says, I just changed the name now. It says Sport down here and Arrabbiata up on top of the window. I'd say it's actually impressive that the Caprice is doing as much better in terms of sales as it is, considering that the Coniglio Arrabbiata is very cheap in comparison, 76% affordability. And it is good. We get a brand bubble bonus. That's kind of an obscure mechanic or company bubble for having multiple trims available to a market at different price points. And only if the more expensive trims are in fact more desirable for that particular market. Looks like our best overlap is an off-road utility, apparently. What about commuter? We are once again, it looks like ahead of Vizere. We're pretty far down. We're actually selling a lot into commuter market, but the big companies are selling even more, simply put. Our best seller is the Coniglio III Merida. And it looks like about like that. Generalist 5 Hetvasia's bestseller is a newer trim of a 10-year-old car, little Mini Cooper looking thing. They hit 73 in drivability. I do not know how they got that in a 1979 facelift. That's insane. That's a lot better than us, and they're ahead of us in comfort. At least we have a better reliability going for us. But yeah, that's crazy. No wonder they're selling better. And then lastly, are we getting into any of those Dunbar 3 markets? How are we doing in premium? Get some sales. Luxury, not so much. Family premium, for sure. We're pretty far down there in family premium. We're behind Vizere. 60-ish sales of, looks like the Coniglio III Primo is neck and neck with the much more expensive Canguro Elite. Vizere's Paramillo Premium looks a lot bigger even than our Canguro. Which is probably why it's doing better in that market. And 51 comfort versus our 47, yeah, at the highest, and less for the smaller cars. Dunbar 3 is onto the Model 2 Mark 8. We've got a sedan convertible GT. And they're still selling some Model 1s. Holy crap. Look at that huge pink thing. Some crazy paint choices there. Also surprising, in the track market, which is exceedingly tiny, we've made 5 sales and become the second best seller. And that's all Caprice. Whereas Vizere is actually number 1 with their Mesite. They got a little light sports car, and they hit 50 sportiness. So they're actually well ahead of us in sportiness. Look at those low-profile tires. At least we can say that their car is more expensive. But yeah, they're doing pretty good on sportiness and drivability. I'd say that might count as a better sports car than the ones I've designed. Recently we've unlocked carbon fiber, adaptive suspension bits. Cassettes are unlocked down to the basic level, although if I actually put a basic cassette in, it'll be an early unlock, which is never worth it compared to like using the standard and not having an early unlock. Very soon we'll have 90s safety. I mentioned carbon fiber chassis. That's a big deal. If we want to make a new supercar immediately and not facelift our old one, that could be an option. Go make a carbon fiber car. Variable valve timing is just unlocked. That's the VTEC. Or no, that's VVL is the VTEC. Variable valve timing is that we did put it in the intake only side on our new supercar engine. Coming up soon is advanced hard steel, semi-space frame, 6-speed manuals, all-wheel drive you can turn on and off. That's a lot better for fuel economy and emissions, I think. Traction control, even though we just started messing with ABS, that just stays expensive. And the good hydraulic power steering. So, of course, you can get a good look at our current R&D spending and definitely try to tell me what categories we need to focus on. And now, we are sitting on over $1 billion. I think the best thing to do might mostly be to expand our current vehicle lineup. Expand production of the vehicles we have engineered. We may be wanting to replace the Cetriolo, our SUV, that's getting a little bit old. We can get a look here at the buys available to us. Of course, we have only just started our supercar engineering, so the same body is on top. We have this Honda Beat little guy. Definitely like that. It's an option if we want to make a super tiny sports car. I'm not sure we have the market for that, but we could probably fit our little engine into it. Mid-engine only. Maybe. I don't plan to use the meme bodies like the hot dog truck, but, it's probably viable if I really, really wanted to. I do like some of the tiny hatchbacks. If you want to make a really small, dedicated city car, because we've been losing the city market, that could be an option. Minivans are in. Little SUVs are in. So it's 1984. We're about to unlock the sports utility market. Having a proper sports utility vehicle could be a good option for us. It's a little different kind of market than our off-road that we have now, but maybe we can make it overlap with one vehicle, or we can even have 2 separate ones. Very nice looking mid-size to large sedan here. Of course, we just made one of those and we're keeping it for a while. as I'm still scrolling, these are still very close to our unlock date. So these are still viable options. Probably we want to look at most is like the SUVs. But I'll be listening to comments. God, our biggest expense is loan repayment. And it will be for a long time, too. At least we have cash on hand. So there, I think that about sums it up. You've got a picture of the situation we're in. We have lots of money. We may be dipping in profits as our pre-orders fill out. We also have some models that are selling more than we can possibly keep up with. So we need to expand on those. And I'm always asking you, the board of directors, what we should do next. What new paint colors do we need? What new trims do we need for the Canguro? Should we replace the Cetriolo with a new generation? Do we need a new model entirely? What kind of wings do our sports cars need? Because they definitely seem to need some wings. And of course, please remember to like and subscribe. It helps the videos. And I will see you all next time for episode 8.